We have some breaking news on the Fed. Steve Leisman is right here at Post 9, and he's got some details for us. Hello,
yes,
Steve.
a new president of the Philadelphia Federal Reserve, Anna Paulson. She is the research director. She's the next president and CEO coming in, replacing Patrick Harker. He's retiring in June. The 10-year mandatory period, 65, I guess, is what happens. He's got to retire then, mandatory retirement age. She was the executive vice president and director of research, which is something the Fed did for a while. A whole bunch of people made the move from research director to president. Evans comes to mind. Anyway, maybe I think Bullard as well. Anyway, a bunch of them did. But she's moving from research director. She started the Fed in Chicago 2019. She joined the Chicago Fed as an economist in 2001, assistant professor of finance at Northwestern University. Postdoctoral at Princeton. I guess she also studied at the University of Chicago. She starts July 1, will be a Fed voter next year. And this is maybe just trivia. It's the most women who have served on the Federal Reserve. 8, I believe, is the number if they all stay. And next year, in 2026, women will represent half of all the 12 votes that actually vote on the FOMC. And I don't know that that's consequential, but I'm sure there's some doctoral student 10 years from now who will study that.
You always want women in charge when we're going into bumpy times.
Maybe you do.
And also kind of a reminder that the Fed regional presidents are not set. They're not set at a federal level or by Congress or by the president. That's the governor.
There's a consultation that goes on with the board, but you're right. It's a local thing where the board of directors does a whole search thing, and then they come up and they pick them, and that's how that works.
And the reason I bring that up, of course, because the topic du jour is President Trump's post about Chair Powell. He thinks he's too late and would like to see interest rate cuts, like we saw from the ECB this morning.
Maybe I can make one point. Powell has not ruled out cutting rates. What I think we're having is a discussion about timing, right? Is when do you address the issue of potential weakness from tariffs? When are you clear to address it because you've cleared the inflation threat that tariffs potentially represent? That's one aspect of it. I don't know if you guys have had a discussion with Merriam-Webster about what the meaning of the word terminate is right there. That is the one. Powell's termination cannot come fast enough. I guess there's a passive and an active way to interpret
his
termination.
His term ending, right?
His term ending, it just happens.
Way to write that.
Or I will be terminating him. And I think that's the one. I looked at the market when it came out. It was like sort of 8-ish, I guess, in the morning just before the market kind of shot down and then it came back up. So I don't see the market reacting to this. But you could argue, and I think you could make a convincing argument that the reason we have an independent Fed is for just this very reason, right? You get a guy in and he wants, just like every president, he wants lower interest rates, faster economy. He will sacrifice inflation. So that's why you have an independent Fed, to insulate them from this kind of political pressure.
Yeah, I mean, Senator Warren argued that.
Yeah, although sacrifice inflation at your own peril. I mean, Joe Biden will tell you that.
Well, I mean, that's a really important point. If you game out the numbers, give me the numbers. What does June look like? That's when the market has, I will tell you precisely, 67% chance of the first cut. Is your unemployment rate now at 4.2? Let's give it 0.3. Let's call it 4.5. Let's say you have a 0.3 increase in the unemployment rate, and let's say you have a 0.5 point on the inflation rate. So you're at what? 3.5, 3.2, 3.3 on your core PCE. Are you cutting in that instance? And I'm saying what Powell is saying is, I got to wait. I got to wait to know if that's a one-time pass-through. You're skeptical, Sarah, and I am amenable to being convinced.
I think it's a good debate. The job of the Fed is to be forward-looking, right? And I think what the market is telling you, i.e. inflation expectations, market measures, not survey measures, and economic projections and market projections, is that tariffs are going to be a bigger threat to the economy than to inflation. And even if it were to spark a little inflation, it's, supply side inflation, and that the Fed isn't as effective at it. What it can do is try to preserve the economic recovery by cutting interest rates. And that's why I think the market was disappointed with his speech yesterday, because he seemed to emphasize price stability a little more than employment.
I wish you'd been saying this when they cut 50 in the fall.
Well, when they cut 50 in the fall, there wasn't the tariffs, so there wasn't an outlook of a worse economy. They went 50 because they were worried a little bit about the unemployment rate ticking up, but they were not. I think it was proven that was not a big worry. The whole outlook has changed now, and the outlook is worse. He talks
although it
to
could be
business.
also undone with the flip of with a tweet. The whole thing could just go away.
What could?
The tariffs.
The tariffs, sure. But right now we have high tariffs.
I want to show you the difference, which, Sarah, I think you're very aware of, difference between Europe and the United States. And as I joked this morning on Squawk Box, it's not just the bread and the chocolate and the coffee, which is very good over there, but we also have substantial differences in the macro environment.
Sure.
We have, they have an inflation rate of 2.2% in their forecast. We have 2.8 before the tariffs went into effect. That's the Fed's forecast. There you go. Yes. There's the policy rate. They yanked it down again today, 2.4. But look at their GDP, which is anemic. Ours is much better. Unemployment, theirs is much higher. Different set of circumstances. Whether or not the Fed could be a quarter or a half easier, maybe it's possible, but it's just a very different
Totally
situation.
different setup.